session, I'm going to talk a little bit about cognitive science in general and the sort of ambitions of cognitive science, what the aims of cognitive science are, and what sort of skills that you're going to acquire as part of your degree. Then I'm going to then we're going to take a little bit of a pause, and we're going to have a go at solving a little problem in cognitive science together. So we're going to look at a funny phenomenon and see if we can try and explain it. And then in the last bit of the session, we're going to kind of look at the practicalities of the degree program and actually, what sort of courses you'll be doing, and give you a bit of an overview of what you're going to do across the 4 years. And then we're going to have an opportunity for discussion and questions at the end. But I'd really like to say again that please ask questions throughout. So just type it into the chat box. And one of the advantages actually of doing this online is that you can type it into the chat box, and we can get to it and address it at the right point in the talk. So any thoughts, just paste them in. Great. Okay, so welcome to cognitive science. I think an important thing to consider when you're starting your degree is, well, what is cognitive science? What have you signed up for with this degree program? It's a good question to ask. So I think that the best way of approaching it is to try and think about the big questions in life. So you might think about, about the richness of your own mental life. Reflect on what's going on inside your mind. And you might wonder, well, what's going on in my mind? What sort of things are mental phenomena? And how does my mind do it? And how does the, let me see if I can, whoops. This is a bit clunky here. Good. Okay, so how does this lump of grey matter here produce the sort of stuff which is going on in my mind? Okay, well, a good point to start is to think about, well, what does the mind consist in? So what are the sort of things that we want to explain? Sorry, there we go. We've immediately we just get all the technical issues out of the way with here, okay? So I just bring up, good, excellent, great. Good. So what sort of things, if you reflect on your mental life, are going on? So what does your mind do? Well, for me, whenever I kind of think what's going on in my mind, one of the main things that stand out is that I have visual images. So whenever I look around, I experience visual images. I also experience sounds and, the sensation of hearing music. I experience smells. So these are all stuff which are mentally going on inside my mind. And it's not just kind of sounds and music. I also experience sentences and words, and those words have significance. So whenever you're kind of hearing me talk, you're not just hearing musical sounds, noises, you're hearing words and sentences. Other things going on in your mind is that very important are your feelings and your emotions and your moods. So these are things that kind of color our experience of the world. And thinking about kind of slightly more slightly more prosaic aspects of the mind. You also sometimes engage in things like reasoning or planning, or thinking about things. So if you have a problem that you need to solve, for example, you need to be at a particular place at a particular time, then you might engage in some sort of planning or reasoning in order to make sure that you get the outcome that you want. And there's lots of other stuff going on inside your mind. So you have lots and lots of stored knowledge. You've got your memories, for example, your episodic memories from your childhood, from what's gone on in the past. And you also have things like attention, which allows certain bits of your mental life to kind of stand out or receive more resources than other bits at any given moment in time. And that's not all. You have you're able to control a body. You have a body, and it's if you've ever seen a robot in action, you'll know that it's not easy to control a body. Good. Sorry, it was just beeping. The channel was beeping at me there, and I just wanted to make sure that everything was all good. So one of the things that our mind can do is that it can control our body, and it can control it in very skilled ways in certain instances. If you think about the kind of skills you have, if you're a good tennis player, and you might have certain habits and certain things that your body tends to do in certain situations. So these all seem to come under the realm of stuff that's going on in your mental life. And indeed, we're really just scratching the surface here. So there's a lot of stuff going on inside your mental life. There's what cognitive science wants to study is it wants to kind of explain how all of this stuff happens and how it's produced by an organ, mechanical organ like the brain. Good. So the central question is, how does all of this stuff work? Now, folks have been, we haven't just noticed this stuff in recent years. Folks have known about all the stuff going on in our minds for a very, very long time, and they've been puzzling for thousands of years about what sort of processes in our bodies produce these kind of mental phenomena. So what's really new about cognitive science and its approach to the mind? Well, what it offers is can be broken down into three distinct things. So what it tries to do is answer the question, well, what is actually going on? So I've given you a very, very kind of informal and very loose description of the sort of things that happen in your mind. But can we describe a little bit more precisely what these things are? So can we describe what reasoning is a little bit more precisely? Can we describe what memory is a little bit more precisely, or motor control? And what cognitive science promises to do is it enables us to do this. So it allows us to describe the phenomenon in question more precisely. And the way in which it does that is that it suggests that we redescribe it as an information processing task or as a computational task. So we try to redescribe all these various aspects of our mind as computations, as specific computations. Okay. So that's one of the innovations, to try to be a bit more precise about what our minds do and characterize them as information processing tasks. The second kind of new and revolutionary thing about cognitive science is that it tries to explain what is the information processing mechanism that's actually responsible for these, for our ability to perform these tasks. So this is often phrased as the question, well, what sort of algorithm or what sort of computation is running on our brains that enable us to experience visual images, enable us to do sophisticated motor control, that enable us to do reasoning and thinking? Okay. So it provides us first with a more precise way to describe what the mind does. And second, it offers a way of telling us how the mind does it, in terms of an algorithm that's running in our heads. And the third thing that cognitive science focuses on is it tries to answer the question of what bits of hardware, what bits of physical hardware in our brain enable this to happen. So which bits of your brain are responsible for all these mental phenomena, and how do they work together? So for example, which bits of your brain are responsible for a specific aspect of motor control, and how do those bits of your brain work together in order to produce the kind of skills that we experience and see? Okay. So the basic idea here is that what's new about cognitive science is that we're going to think of the brain and think of our mental life as the product of a very special type of computer. So it's not like the desktop computers that you might be using. So it's not very similar to what's going on in those cases, but it's still a special type. It's still a special computation. It's a special type of computer. And we should try to understand the many and varied things that your mind does in computational terms. And this is, there are various different schools of thought within cognitive science, but this basic idea that we should at least try to understand the mind in computational terms is a kind of a unifying idea. And different folks might disagree about the extent to which our brains are similar to more familiar computers. So some people think they're not that similar at all. Some people think that they really are very similar. But the basic idea that we should try to understand the mind in computational terms is kind of the unifying thought in cognitive science. That's what we're getting into. Good. Okay, so if you want to take on this task of trying to understand the mind as a very sophisticated kind of computer, you're going to need lots of different skills. So first, you're obviously going to need a little bit of knowledge about what a computer is and what computational explanation is. You're going to need to learn a little bit of computer science. And I'm afraid there's no way around this. So this is sometimes a massive attraction for people, and sometimes it's just a kind of something that you just need to do in order to progress. So whenever you do a cognitive science degree, you're going to learn some computer science. And in Edinburgh, computer science is known by the term informatics. Okay, so you'll see informatics everywhere, but that basically just means context computer science. It's just what we call it here. Okay. Second, you're also going to need to learn a little bit of maths. Okay. Now, this relates to the point that I was making a bit earlier, that in cognitive science, we try to say a little bit more precisely what our mental life is. We try and say a little bit more precisely what attention is, what it means to understand a sentence. So we try to be a little bit more precise in our informal description of the mind. And what mathematics provides is a very, very useful tool for describing things precisely. So you will need to learn a little bit of maths. And you'll obviously be learning some psychology. A lot of modern psychology is essentially cognitive science. It overlaps with cognitive science. So they're both concerned with understanding how the mind works. You're also going to be learning some linguistics. So one of the really important things that our mind does, and one of the things which is kind of very noticeable, which is different from human minds and the other animals, is that we are able to understand and learn complex languages. And this sort of feature of our mental life, our ability to learn and speak and understand language, is going to be, one of the things that we're going to study, and it's been one of the targets of one of the main targets of research in cognitive science. You're also going to learn some philosophy. So philosophy is important because it's going to help us. If you think, we made a bit of a concept there. So we started off wondering what's going on in your mind and how does that occur? And then we jumped to this picture of let's think of the mind as a computer and try to understand what computation your brain performs. Now, what philosophy is going to help us do is try to be sure that whenever we start talking about computations performed by the brain, we really are answering our original question, our original puzzle about what the mind is and how it works. Okay, so philosophy is going to help us keep on track that the work that we do in cognitive science is really going to be answering our original puzzle. You're also going to be learning a little bit of neuroscience. So this doesn't feature hugely in the degree program here, but it is important, and you will be learning bits and pieces of neuroscience as part of your other course. And this is really going to speak to this question of which bits of the brain implement various computations, so which bits of the brain are used for solving various tasks. Okay. And you're going to be learning bits and pieces of other disciplines as well. So you're going to see that cognitive science includes lots and lots of other areas of expertise, including things like anthropology, artificial intelligence, um, all sorts of other areas which you're gonna dip into as part of the course. So the good news is that you're going to get training in a wide variety of really, really interesting areas. And I think that's something which is a major attraction of the discipline. The slightly less good news is that you're going to have to try to master a whole bunch of different disciplines, and that's not easy. So it's worth saying that from the start. So expect to be challenged as part of your degree to get your head around all these various areas of cognitive science. But take it as something which is going to is something that is going to be worthwhile, and it's going to hopefully help you and us and researchers in the future that you may well become have an integrated and interdisciplinary understanding of the mind. Good. Okay, so this is our first meeting, and I'm going to tell you a dirty secret about cognitive science. The dirty secret is that cognitive science is really in its very early infancy. So answering these questions, okay, so trying to say what the mind is in terms of an information processing computational task, saying what the algorithm underlying our mind is, and identifying how our brain hardware works to support it. We've made very little progress in doing this. So don't go into this degree thinking that you're going to come out of it understanding how the mind works. So even the smartest folks in the world working at the forefront of research in cognitive science are only really at the foothills of our understanding of the mind. But on the other hand, don't let this get you down. This means that you're kind of getting into the discipline early on the ground floor, and the vast majority of the breakthroughs still lie in the future. They're still waiting for us, and you can be part of this. You could be a future researcher in this area. So you'll see that it's very, very hard to answer these three questions, and we don't have great models of many aspects of life. But the general approach is very, very promising, and you'll have the opportunity to contribute to it. And actually, I think one of the nice things about cognitive science is that it's very easy to move quite quickly from learning the basics of it to learning about cutting edge research, and even potentially later in your degree contributing to cutting edge research. So I think it makes it exciting that basically it hasn't all been solved for you. Okay, so in cognitive science, our goal is to explain how the mind works, and we're going to do this by breaking up the problem into three questions. And this project is going to be something that is going to unfold over decades to come. It hasn't already happened. It's something which is in progress right now, and it's going to be a multidisciplinary endeavor. So you're going to need skills from all sorts of different areas. Good. Okay, so I've put this slide up to remind me to take a break at this point, and you might want to have a sip of coffee. I'm going to pause here to see if there are any questions or anyone wants to say anything. Do we have any questions of any sort? Okay, all good. I'm going to have a poll here. I'm going to start a little poll. Okay, cool. Thanks very much. I love the fact that I can do these polls, actually. Excellent. Great. Okay, so we're going to just spend a few minutes having. Oh, good. Hold on. So there's a question from Naomi. So let me see. So what are the main disciplines covered in the Intro to CogSci course? Naomi, I may get to that towards the end, if that's okay. I'll talk a little bit more about that course in the last section. But yeah, thanks very much indeed. Good. Okay, so we're going to have a look at what it's like to think like a cognitive scientist for a second. Now I want to share a little video with you. Let me see if I can do that. So this might be something that you've seen before. So I'm just going to stop the presentation for a second, and I'm going to share this. Cool. Okay. It doesn't matter if you have seen this. Oops. Looking around all over the place here. Let me try this polling. So start this. So have you seen this before? So I expect that some of you have. Oh, that's good. So some of you haven't, which is I expected all you guys would be addicted to social media. So, but yeah, that's great that you haven't. So some of you have, some of you haven't. Okay, so I'm going to play this clip now, and let me do this. So you should hear the audio. So let me know if there are any problems and you don't hear the audio. So I'm going to play this clip repeatedly. So I'll let it just loop for a second. So you can see that there are two words here. And the instruction is you will only hear the word that you're reading. So just give it a go. So read the word and then hear what is said. So I'm just going to play it so that you guys have a go at it. Okay, so the audio is not coming through. Let me just stop this for a second. So let me share. When I tried this before we started, there was a button I needed to click. Excellent. Okay, good. So it should work now. Great. So the audio is coming through. So I hope it's working for you. So if you try reading it, or you thinking, even you don't need to read it, you just think about it. So then that should be the word that you hear. So let me just tell you that it's the same audio being looped, so it's not playing different words. It's exactly the same audio signal in both cases. So it's a little clip which is being looped and looped, and depending on which one you read or which one you're thinking about, you should hear it. So I'll just have a quick, are you getting this effect? So a couple of people aren't getting it. So I'm going to give you another video which has the same effect, okay? And we'll try it with that one. So I think 19 showing here, let me show you your responses. 19 people are getting it and 3 people aren't experiencing it. Maybe some people, so these might be individual differences that some people aren't experiencing it. Let's try another video which is the same. So this was based on a toy which was produced. So this is a toy which is creating the audio signal. Now, you might be wondering if there's some sort of funniness going on here with this person, Emily Sophie, and the way in which she's looking at various things and just her appearance. So let me show you another version of it here. Okay, so I'm gonna get this. Good. So good. So this is exactly the same audio. This is what she has in the background, basically running. It's a little toy which produces this audio. Now, I'd like you to just, I'm going to play this on a loop for a little bit, and I'd like you just to decide in your own head before you hear it whether you want to hear brainstorm or green needle. Okay, so just think to yourself, brainstorm or green needle, and then it'll repeat. And then I want you to think of the other one and then see if you can flip it at will, okay, which one you hear. Okay, so I'm going to start it now. Okay, so we've got let me try that again. So are you getting the effect there? So if there's anyone who's not getting it, can you type in the chat window? So at least in my case, I can make it say anything I like. I can make it say either brainstorm or green needle at will. Okay. It's pretty weird, isn't it? Okay, so this is a slightly this is a weird and puzzling phenomenon. So I'm going to tell you straight out that there's no trickery involved here. So it's not sort of magic or illusion or anything like that. So what's happening here is that exactly the same audio signal is being played over and over again, but you're hearing 2 different words. Yep. So Roxana said it works for brain needle and greenstorm as well. So that's right. So there's some other words you can hear if you think about them before you get the audio. Good. Okay. So if you're a cognitive scientist, then I hope that your curiosity is piqued by this sort of phenomenon. There's something weird going on here. So let me just switch this. Let me switch this back. Okay. So what I'd like us to do is think a little bit as if we were a cognitive scientist approaching this phenomenon. So the first thing that we would need to do is to describe the phenomenon more precisely first. And I'll do that bit for you. So a more precise description of the phenomenon is that we hear exactly the same audio input. We have exactly the same sensory input in these cases, but we hear a different word depending on what we're thinking about or in what we're reading. Okay, so the question I have is, what's going on here? So it's not a trick or magic. So what do you think is the explanation for why we hear a different word depending on what we're thinking about? So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna split you guys up into groups, and I just want you to have a little chat among yourselves to think about how can you explain what's going on? So what's happening here? If it's not magic, if it's not some sort of weird ability to that they're fiddling around sending you different audio signals depending on magically what you're thinking. If it's not magic, what is it? So what's the explanation for this phenomenon? Okay, so I'm going to have a go here at splitting you guys up into little groups. So this is it. Yep, I'll try this. So I'm going to have, yep, good. 3 groups. So I'm going to start it. I'm going to start it shortly. So you're going to appear in a room, virtual room with a bunch of other folks from the course. And I'm going to stop the rooms after about 5 or 6 minutes, and we'll come back together. So I'm just going to start that now, and I'd like you to try and come up with the answer to what's going on here, if you can.
Mark, I wanted to say thanks for that example. I didn't think TikTok could be so cogside relevant.
Okay, folks, so I've brought you all back together again. So I was looking in and I saw that there was some good discussion in the various breakout groups. So does anyone want to type into the chat what they think is going on here? I think you guys basically had a good explanation of it. So there's some great suggestions going on in the individual groups. Yep. So Gleb has got a good answer here. Both words are pronounced at the same time, but our brain tends to list the information we seem to make sense of, so as to make our perception easier. So I think that this is right. So this is similar ideas have been coming out in the comments of other folks in different groups as well. So I think that what this tells us is that the way in which we hear things, we aren't like a passive recording system. So we aren't like a microphone recorder, or the way in which, for example, we see things. We aren't like just a camera which takes in information and progressively filters it or processes it. We bring our expectations to bear on the sensory information. Good. Katie says, is it the brain taking a bit of a shortcut and our brain associates a word, for example, with what it knows better? That's right. That's right. So what this is called, it's called a top-down effect. So it's an effect in perception that where what we perceive is influenced by what we expect or what we are thinking of at the time. Okay. So it shows, what this shows is it reveals a clue about how our minds work, that our minds aren't just like cameras. They aren't just taking in information. They are trying to actively construct and infer what's out there. So if you're thinking green needle, you're more likely to interpret an ambiguous audio stream as green needle. If you're thinking brainstorm at the time, you're more likely to interpret exactly the same ambiguous set of sounds as brainstorm. Okay. So you guys might have come across similar. So this isn't just for this doesn't just occur for hearing words. It occurs in all sorts of different areas of perception. So what this reveals is that perception is partly constructed. Cherry, are some of the sounds in green needle, specifically the first syllables, just perceived as a sort of a hissing sound if the brain is expecting to hear brainstorm? I think, Cherry, you're right. I think that one of the key to making this work is that the stimulus that we receive is inherently ambiguous. It's a noisy stimulus. So it's not someone saying very, very clearly and precisely one of these two words. It's an ambiguous, noisy stimulus that could be interpreted either way, and we can drive our brain to land on one interpretation rather than another based on our expectations at the time. Okay, so let me give you guys a example of this in a different sensory modality. So this might be something that you've seen before. So good. Okay, so maybe you guys have seen this before. So this is a famous ambiguous image that some people see as a duck, other people see as a rabbit. Okay. I just get a, just out of curiosity, I'm gonna have a poll. Okay, so the ducks are the winners here, but a fair number of people also see it as a rabbit. So this is an ambiguous sensory stimulus that we can see either as a duck or as a rabbit, and it's driven in part by your prior expectations. Okay, here's another example which you might not have seen before of another kind of funny top-down effect in perception. So let me, share this final one with you. Be interested to see if, good. Okay. So let me have a poll here before I ask you anything. So the last people are just entering the responses. I'm going to show you the responses in a second. They're really interesting. Okay, anyone wants to enter the last responses? Okay, I'm gonna reveal them now. Okay, good. So this is a phenomenon that was first. This particular image was used for this by Lisa De Bruin, who's a psychologist in Glasgow, and it was spread on Twitter about last year or so. So what's interesting here is that quite a lot of you are reporting that when you see this, you experience a thudding sound. So there is no audio associated with this clip at all. And in fact, I've muted any sort of audio from this web page. So you're not receiving any audio input from this at all. But nevertheless, a significant portion of people report that they experience a thudding sound. So again, this is another way in which our perception, which seems, often to us as a kind of transparent way in which we're connected to the world, is actually created by our own minds. So in this case, you get what's called a cross-modal effect, where an expectation driven by your visual perception of the power pylon jumping up and down and produces an experience for you in another sensory modality, in your auditory modality. Weird stuff. Good. Okay, so let me end this, and I'm going to close this. I'm going to give you the links to all of these at the end. Good. I'll bring back the presentation. Good. Okay, so what's going on here? Well, this is a top-down effect. It shows that the kind of processing or computation that our brains perform isn't just a kind of a one-way pipeline with information coming in and getting gradually refined. It's got top-down influences where your expectations affect what you see. There are loads of examples, really interesting examples of this, and we're still, discovering more and more cases, funny cases in which our perception is driven by expectations and by things going on in other sensory modalities. Now, cognitive scientists love these kinds of illusions because what they do is they give us little clues about how our minds operate, about the various processes which take place, which are not transparent to us just by introspection at all. So they give us little clues. They're a bit like if you have a software package and there's like a bug in the software package and it gives you a funny message if you do a particular behavior, if you click on a certain place, and that reveals to you a little bit about how that how that's working in the background, how it's actually working. So these kind of weird effects are of massive interest to cognitive scientists because they provide us with clues about unusual things which are happening in the processing of the information which is coming into us. Okay, so you're going to be learning tons about these kind of weird phenomena and how we might explain them in detail. So just to give you some background here, so these are the two videos that we saw. This is a duck rabbit, and there's a hollow mask one which you're going to see, I'm sure you'll see later on in your other courses. This is the skipping pylon one, which is a cross-modal effect, which I showed. Now, if you're curious to learn more about these sort of things, then a really fun paper to read, it's not a difficult one, is this one by Richard Gregory. So I've linked to it here. And if you want to know even more, then there's a wonderful book by Chris Frith, the psychologist Chris Frith, called Making Up the Mind, How the Brain Creates Our Mental World, which I'd really recommend. So this link to it will provide you with online access to it through University of Edinburgh. And it's just fun bedtime reading. You know, it's not a hard book to read, but it's going to help you understand the kinds of stuff that cognitive scientists do, and you'll learn loads of cool things. Good. Okay, time for a pause here. So I hope you enjoyed seeing those kind of weird things and thinking about them. Are there any questions? Any questions or anything? So I'm going to dive in now into the kind of the more practical bits of the program after you've kind of looked at the kind of strange and wonderful things that your mind does. Good. Okay. Okay, Beth. So you've asked a great question. To what extent are we able to branch out and focus on more on one of the disciplines? So I'm going to answer that in a second. That's a great question. Thank you. Good. Okay. Well, that's an opportunity for us to just catch our breaths. What I'm going to do now is move on to talk a little bit about the cognitive science at Edinburgh, and this is really going to walk you through what you're going to be, what the degree program is going to be like. So first of all, a little bit of history. Edinburgh is world famous for cognitive science, so it's one of the institutions where basically modern cognitive science was born. And one of the virtues of Edinburgh is that it's strong in all of these different areas that I mentioned, in informatics and mathematics, philosophy, psychology, language sciences. It's super strong in all of these areas, but it's also strong in the integration of all of these areas. And it has a long history of these various disciplines, various departments talking to each other and having a, exploring the mind with a unified approach. So if you're interested in cognitive science, Edinburgh is one of the very best places in the world to do it. So this is actually a picture here of the Informatics Forum, which is beside philosophy and linguistics, and lots of informatics researchers are there, or would be there if there were no pandemic. And they have lots of wonderful things, like they have a robot lab, and they have loads and loads of cool technology, kind of understand and explore the mind. Good. So let's talk a bit about your degree program. So this is probably something which is very much on your mind at the moment. So this is what your first year looks like. And there's loads of interesting courses that you're taking. One thing to mention is that there isn't a huge amount of flexibility in your first year. So just in order to give you the broad basis in all these different disciplines, there isn't much in the way of kind of strange or unusual courses that you can take. So one course that is really important is Introduction to Cognitive Science. So this is the kind of core introductory course. I'm the course organizer for that, and I'm going to be giving some of the lectures on it. And this is really kind of a ground or introduction to cognitive science. It doesn't presuppose any prior knowledge. You're going to learn a little bit about some of the big debates in cognitive science, and you're going to also be introduced to programming. So some of you might be very happy programming already, and others, it might be completely new to you. We don't pose any prior knowledge, and you're going to learn a little bit about how computers operate and how to write little programs as part of this course. Good. So there was a question. I'm just going back earlier. There was a question specifically about this course that was from Naomi, I think. The main disciplines covered in Introduction to Cognitive Science. I would encourage you to log on to Learn, and I've already posted a little video about that. Angela asked which programming language is used. It's Python. It's a programming language called Python, which is a nice language. It's actually one of the easier languages to learn and one of the funner languages to code in. It's also a very useful language for if you want to go on to a career in computer science or working in industry. It's a useful language to learn. So we don't presuppose any prior knowledge. The course looks at three main areas in cognitive science. So one is a debate about empiricism and nativism. So this is a debate about to what extent are various cognitive abilities, various aspects of the mind, to what extent are these learnt during childhood, so by a general learning mechanism, and to what extent are they pre-wired into us, are they innate? So it's a question about to what extent is various aspects of our mind innate versus learned. So we look at nativism and empiricism. The second thing we look at is representation. So this is based around the idea that inside your head there are lots of representations. And then the third thing we look at is situated cognition, which is the idea that not just your brain, but also bits of your body and parts of the environment contribute to your mental life as well, contribute in all sorts of unexpected ways to your cognitive processing. Okay, so those are the three main topics. But if you look in the Learn page for it, then you'll find the course guide and you'll find kind of a detailed breakdown of what we do week by week. Good. Any other questions, just type them in here. I'll try to do them as we go along. So Cherry asks, is there an opportunity to take a completely outside course? Unfortunately, not in year one. In year two, yes, but in year one, we just can't fit it into the schedule with everything else to cover. Luca says, do you know when our timetables will be available? So maybe Sarah might be able to answer that question. So I know that that's happening as we speak, but maybe Sarah or someone from the teaching office will be able to answer that in the chat. That's a good question, Luca. Okay, so Intro to Cognitive Science is a really important core one. You also do foundational courses in linguistics. So you do one of the early linguistics courses, and you do a course in informatics, which is also an introduction to cognitive science, but with a slightly more informatics, computer science slant to it, okay? So you're going to get a slightly different sampling of topics in cognitive science from that. Okay. So these are the three ones which are kind of all compulsory. Now we get into the realm where you can have a little bit of choice and flexibility. So you can choose which of two philosophy courses to take. Good. So there's an answer in the online chat from Moira Avram about the timetabling. So once the enrollment is done, you'll be able to see that the teaching is online or synchronous in person. So do you know, maybe Moira can type in there when the students will be able to see their timetables. So I know that the university is processing that at the moment. Okay, so Moira said they're in the process of enrolling now. So shortly, you should be able to see it in your timetables when they are. Okay, good. So we've got a bit of flexibility that you can choose one of two philosophy courses. And we've got a little bit of flexibility here where you can choose to do, this is for the slightly more formal stuff, either a course on logic, which is taught by philosophy, or a course which is taught by informatics, which is called Introduction to Computation. Now, there's a lot of overlap between these two courses, so they cover kind of similar aspects, similar materials, so that's why you choose one or other of them. And the motivation for choosing one rather than the other really depends on how much you enjoy mathematics and kind of formal stuff. So if you really love the kind of mathematical and formal stuff, and you would like to do quite a bit of informatics later in the degree, so you want to do machine learning, you want to be taking lots of informatics courses, then this is the one to choose, Introduction to Computation. If, on the other hand, you're not so keen on doing maths and computation and you want to focus on kind of other aspects in your degree, then choose Logic 1. Okay, and then I hope that's clear. If there are any questions on that, then let me know. But it's really just a question of how much you love and feel comfortable doing more rather than less maths. Good. Okay, so the last one is the one where you have most flexibility. So it's to choose one course from Group B. And here is a picture of Group B. So you choose one out of this set of courses. Now, I've got some advice for you here. Again, it depends on how much you want to focus on mathematics and informatics, computer science later in the degree. So if you see yourself later doing informatics courses and you love the kind of mathsy programming aspect of it, then I would suggest for this last one that you choose this course here, Informatics 1, Object-Oriented Programming. Okay, and this is actually a prerequisite for many informatics courses in year 2. So if you want to take informatics courses later next year, then you'd better do this one here, Intro to Computation, and you better do this one here, Object-Oriented Programming, in order to have the prerequisites. Okay. If, however, you're not such a fan of being a computer scientist and you want to focus on other bits, then I would suggest for this final course here to pick this one instead, Data Analysis for Psychology in R. This is an introduction to data analysis in psychology, and this is going to help you in your second year. Okay. Okay, are there any questions about that? Just stick them in the chat channel. It's a bit baffling, the different degree pathways. So,
Mark, can you hear me? It's Moira.
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, it's easier if I speak because I absolutely can't see things because my glasses are the wrong ones. So the typing is going to be a bit weird. And I was just going to say something about the question that I answered. So just to be clear, the synchronous, so anything that's timetabled, so a tutorial that may be synchronous online or in person, the students will be able to see that in the timetable. But anything that isn't will not appear in the way that you might expect it, because obviously asynchronous will be more difficult to do that. So it's really just timetabled events in that sense, and those students should be able to see those via Office 365 within the next, end of this week, next week, before teaching. But that's really the way that it'll work. I just thought it'd be easier to just chat that through rather than try to type it out.
That's really helpful. Thanks, Moira. So I know for my course, Introduction to Cognitive Science, there are going to be lectures, but the lectures are asynchronous. So they're going to be uploaded as videos that you can watch anytime. But there are other bits of the course, like the tutorials and programming labs, which are synchronous, which mean that they occur at a particular time of day and you need to log on at that particular time and participate in them. And only the synchronous ones, the ones where you need to be there at a particular time, are going to appear in your timetable. But that isn't everything that you should be doing. There are also the lectures and there are also the readings. Okay, so I'm just going to run. Sorry, Maura, go ahead.
Very quickly, sorry to interrupt again. Just to say that keep an eye on Learn pages, and that will give you some more information as well. Just to finish that.
That's right. So the course organizer should give you instructions on what you need to do. I'm just going to quickly run through the questions because we've got some great ones here. So Beth said, is it not recommended that we pick any of the others? So any of the others out of Group B? You can do it, but I would recommend that just thinking ahead and preparing you for next year, that you choose one of these two. Okay, that's my recommendation. Lucas says, is there a deadline? So you should have the opportunity to make your course choices now. The deadline for being on courses is the end of the second week of teaching. So we're just about to begin week 1 next week. So on the Friday of the second week of teaching is the cutoff, and whatever courses you're on at that stage, you're on them and you can't change. Charlie says, is there any opportunity to change these optional courses later? I think that answers that. So you can change it within the first 2 weeks. Yep. So Kate, thank you for replying to that. The data analysis course, Python based. My understanding, they've recently redone this course, but my understanding is psychologists love R. So there's a programming language called R, and that tends to be used a lot by psychologists. And the data analysis and psychology is taught in this language R, so it's not Python. Computer scientists love Python. So in the Intro to Cog Sci and other bits of your course, you're going to be learning Python. In the data analysis for psychology in R, you're going to be learning R. So you'll really be learning 2 languages. The good news is that R is not a difficult language to learn. It's designed to be really, really straightforward. Gwen says, is there a difference between Psychology 1A and 1B? So you don't need to do Psychology 1A and 1B. And in fact, I would recommend that you do data analysis for Psychology in R instead. So a lot of the topics in Psychology 1A and 1B will be covered in either Introduction to Cognitive Science or in Informatics 1, Cognitive Science. So you'll already be getting that in a different context. Alba Tool, thank you very much for answering that question. Good. And Maura has the deadline there, October the 3rd. And Thomas says, yes, R is indeed the industry standard for psychology. Good. Any other questions about that? So I would recommend that you keep it simple and just think, am I loving the idea of going deeper with the maths and the programming? If you are, then choose the 2 informatics options in your first year, and that will enable you to do that, and it'll enable you to take future informatics courses. If you shy away from that sort of kind of formal stuff, then take Logic 1 and data analysis for psychology in R. So, okay, so good questions from Naomi and Cherry. So this is about prerequisites. So so you've noticed that this linguistics and English language 1B is a prerequisite for future linguistics courses. And what happens if you can't take that? Well, what's happened is within PPLS, so within philosophy, psychology, and linguistics, we've agreed to waive these prerequisites for cognitive science students because we know they're taking a slightly unusual pathway. So don't worry that you won't have that formal prerequisite. It'll be waived for cognitive science students. So Gleb says, likely is it not to get our first choice courses? I think that you should. So my understanding is that within PPLS you will. And I think there's some slight uncertainty that we don't know exactly what's happening in informatics, but I very much expect that you will, and I'm strongly arguing that all Cog Sci students should automatically get their choices here. So I would expect so, and if you don't, please contact me as program director, and I'll see if there's anything I can do about it. So the answer to your question is very likely. As Beth says, is all teaching online this year, or might it change at some point? The teaching is online. It's very likely to be entirely online this semester. So we will move it to introduce in-person elements, provided it fits with the kind of government recommendations and the capacities that we have here. My expectation is that it's likely to be online this semester, and then it'll be reassessed for the second semester beginning in January. I'm hoping actually that we'll be able to have some informal in-person meetings as the semester goes on, just to chat together about cognitive science. So I'll give you more information about that. In-person tutorials in semester 1. So some courses are offering this. I don't have the answer to exactly which ones, but you will find out. So Gwen asked, should we have the same number of credits in both semesters? I think it's generally a good idea for your own sanity to have equal workload in both semesters, but it's not a requirement. So if you really, really want to take a course that means that you're doing more in one semester than another, I would say go with your intellectual ambition. So it's a good. Okay, so keep typing the questions in. I'm just aware I don't want to run over the time here, so I'm going to quickly move on. So just to give you a preview of what's going to happen in the other years coming up. Good. Okay, so this is what year 2 looks like, and this basically should hopefully explain to you why I was recommending that you take data analysis for psychology in year 1. So this is the second year course. Data analysis for psychology in our version 2. So this is a compulsory course that you need to take. So if you've done the version for year 1, then you're obviously well prepared for year 2. If you haven't done the version for year 1, so if you've done informatics and intro to computation, then you're probably, you're mathematically able enough to have skipped this, okay, or that you can catch up during the summer, okay. So this won't pose too much of a challenge for you. So don't worry if you haven't done version 1 and you did the more mathsy, computation-y stuff instead. You should be able to jump straight into version 2. So Angela said she's already chosen her courses. So I would recommend going with what I suggested, so changing it to what I suggested. I think that will prepare you best, and you can specialize more later in the degree. So Naomi has a question there about linguistics, and so I'm not sure, I haven't looked at that specific item, but I know as a general policy has been that cognitive science prerequisites for cognitive science students would be waived because there's no way they would have been able to do them. Jessie asked, where should we choose our courses? So maybe Maura would be able to type in the answer to that. So you should have got course choice forms. Lucas said, will this talk be recorded? Yes, it is being recorded, and you can go back and watch it. Good. Okay, so year 2, to keep in mind, you will have to do this course, Data Analysis for Psychology in R2, and that's why it makes sense to do this in year 1, or to take a more mathsy route where you can just jump into this and do it from scratch. And then you have a little bit more choice with these 4 courses. So you've got to meet a depth and breadth requirement. So you have to select 60 credits, sampling 3 out of the 4 different subject areas. So you have to sample 3 out of the 4, philosophy, psychology, linguistics, and informatics. So you could do 20 philosophy, 20 psychology, 20 informatics if you wanted, or some other combination. And then there's a depth requirement that you do 20 in an extra 20 in one of these. So suppose you really love linguistics, then you could do 20 in philosophy, 20 in psychology, and 40 in linguistics. Okay. And you can select them from this set of courses here. Now, one thing to mention here is that sometimes students want to do informatics. They love the informatics stuff. And there are two informatics courses to highlight here that Cog-Sci students often want to do. So one is Reasoning and Agents, and the other one is Introduction to Algorithms and Data Structures. Now, there's a slight gotcha with these two courses in that if you want to take them in year 2, like you really love the informatics, then you must have done in year 1 the 2 informatics courses. So you must have done Intro to Computation and Object-Oriented Programming. Okay. That's one thing to keep in mind. So if you have this in your future that you would like to do this, then you definitely have to plan ahead by doing this one and this one now. Okay, and then you can choose one extra outside course of your choice. And this could be another philosophy, psychology, linguistics, informatics course. That would make total sense. Or it can be something totally wacky and bizarre. You could do a course in history or a course in archaeology, whatever you do. So this is a truly free outside course. Good. Okay, so I'll keep going here and just post any questions as you have them. So for years 3 and 4, which are called the honors years, things are a little bit different. So you have a lot of flexibility at that point. So the only requirement in years 3 and 4 is that across the 2 years, do at least 20 credits in 3 out of the 4 subject areas. So you've done at least 1 class in philosophy, at least 1 in psychology, at least 1 in linguistics, or at least 1 in informatics. So 3 out of the 4. So for example, philosophy, psychology, and linguistics would be enough. And then obviously you make up the rest. So suppose you reach years 3 and 4 and you just love linguistics, then you can do primarily linguistics courses in years 3 and 4. You might want to do some speech and language processing courses from informatics as well. Added you've done 1 class in philosophy and 1 class in psychology, you're all good. Okay, so you have a lot of flexibility in years 3 and 4. That said, if you want to do informatics, it's really important in years 3 and 4. It's really important that you've kind of taken this informatics pathway earlier. So you've done these and these 2 in year 1. Okay, that's informatics for you. You also have the opportunity in year 4 to do a dissertation. And you just choose 1 subject area to do this in. So you could do your dissertation in philosophy, in psychology, in linguistics, or project in informatics. And often people in cognitive science do kind of cross-disciplinary dissertations. So they draw ideas from different disciplines. But officially, you will have a supervisor in 1 of these 4 subject areas. And you just choose 1 at that stage. So Cherry asks, is there opportunity to take outside courses in years 3 and 4? So there's not. So, and this is true for pretty much all degrees in Edinburgh, that in years 3 and 4, you're now focusing really on your own subject area. And in fact, in cognitive science, you probably have more flexibility than most because you can choose your class, a joint pool of philosophy, psychology, linguistics, and informatics classes. But you can't, for example, do courses in year 4 in history or anthropology or theology. Good. So years 3 and 4, you get to kind of explore your interests with more flexibility and in greater depth. Good. Now, the canonical place to look, so this is really the Bible that you refer to if you want to know what are your choices, what do I need to do in each year, is called the DPT, the degree program, the degree program table. And this is the link to it. So it's a URL which is accessible online. If you click on that, then it'll bring it up, and it'll bring up this kind of series of different boxes which tell you what the versions at various stages. And this is what I refer to whenever I'm trying to work out what the rules are. Okay. So this is the ultimate source of authority on what you are able to do in each year. Good. So just to give you an idea of where your degree is within the scheme of things, it's often be quite confusing whenever you arrive. There's the University of Edinburgh, which is the big institution. Within the university, there are several colleges, and we are within the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. Within that college, there are many schools, and we are the School of Philosophy, Psychology, and Language Sciences. And the Cognitive Science degree program, the MA degree program, is within that school. Okay, so this will all, within a few weeks, this will all begin to seem entirely natural. And how could this be otherwise to you? But I can fully appreciate that it looks a bit confusing whenever you first arrive. Good. So any questions, just keep posting them into the chat. Whenever things are more normal than they are now, this is where we tend to live. This is called the Dougal Stewart Building. It's on George Square. So the teaching office is inside here. The undergraduate teaching office is in there. And the philosophy and philosophy academics are kind of up here. And the linguistics academics are kind of round here. So philosophy and linguistics is in here. Informatics is partly in here. Okay, so we're all together. And this is the teaching office. And we have a wonderful student support team, which is just here on the ground floor. Now, I appreciate that a lot of this interaction with the teaching office, with the student support officers, is likely to take place virtually. But you'll be hearing more about the best way to contact folks in kind of other introductions, other talks, if you haven't already. The other main building that we have is in 7 George Square, and this is where the psychologists live, basically in this huge kind of rabbit warren here. So hopefully when things return a little bit more to normal, you'll have the opportunity to kind of explore some of the beautiful nooks and crannies there, and where folks do various kinds of experiments. These are the folks that you're going to be meeting, or a small sample from them. So we have a wide range of philosophers, that's me. Linguists, lots of interesting linguists, and the linguists actually overlap a little bit with the psychologists. So there are some psychologists who study language. And there are also some folks that you're going to be meeting in informatics who are working in cognitive science. Good. So Shane has a question. I'll just let her type that in. We're getting close towards the end here. I just want to quickly register here. If you must have heard this already. So your personal tutor is someone assigned to you for academic advice, and that may well be me, or it may be Hannah Rhoda. So we are the personal tutors for, I think, all of the incoming cognitive science students. And I'll be meeting my personal tutees in the next couple of days, and we'll be sort of talking about course choices and various kind of academic decisions about courses that you're taking. Okay, so Shian is saying that we're going to be, the link is going to expire at 1:30, so we're going to be unceremoniously stopped. Is there any opportunity for extending it? Just a few minutes, Shian? As I'm aware, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Cognitive Science Society, and we've got some folks here from the Society. So Shian says we can't do that. Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'll post up. So the remainder of this presentation is I'm going to post up online for you to read. I'm going to talk a little bit about Microsoft Teams. So you're all going to be enrolled in Microsoft Teams and have the opportunity to chat there. Yeah, so I think, good. Okay, so Thomas has posted. Okay. So Xian says that we could set up a new link. Okay, so do you want to do that? Or maybe the best thing is oh, good. Okay. Great. Okay, so I'm just aware that the call is going to cut off in a second, whether I want it to or not. So Thomas has posted into the chat channel there a bunch of links to the Cognitive Science Society, which is a great group of undergraduate students which organise social activities and activities for you guys to get together and discuss CogSci. And they have some great speakers as well. I'm not sure if Xian is going to. Okay. Maybe Xian can tell us if we can continue the session just for a couple of minutes. Is the session, can we continue on this call, Xian? Okay, good. Okay, so the call is not going to end. So I'll just quickly. Good, thanks. That makes things a little bit easier. Let me just quickly mention that I've created this team which all of the CogSci students on across all of the years. So you guys can chat among each other. So there are different channels here. So there's a general channel for asking questions about, that might be of interest to everyone. There's a year one channel, chat channel, which is for year one students to hang out and share information among each other. Now, if you haven't done so already, I would recommend that you download Microsoft Teams and install the application. You can log into it with your university username and your password. And to join the cognitive science team, then just please click on this link. So I'm going to post this link into the chat channel. So if you have Teams running now, you can just click on that link. Okay. Just going to say, please click on this link. Okay. And I'm hoping that will make it a lot easier for us to kind of stay in contact with each other and share kind of useful, interesting stuff that we know. So I just posted information about a book which I read recently in CogSci, which I really, really loved. So if you click on that, then I'll get a request for you to join the team. Good stuff. Excellent. So I can see the requests are coming through. So if you haven't done so already, then I would say, excellent. I'm going to accept all of those. Then please download Teams and click on that link. Good. Okay. So I think you're going to be receiving feedback on your work at various stages during the year, but it's actually really important that you give us feedback on kind of how we're doing. So it's really uncharted territory for us to do this online this year. And if you think that there's something that we could do that we're not doing, or that there's something that's not working, either a technical hitch or just kind of the practicalities of running it aren't functioning, then please let us know. So you can send me a personal email, or you can share it on Teams. But please let us know if you think that there's something that we could do better to make things run a little bit more smoothly. And hopefully we can work together to kind of make the best out of the kind of strange setting that we're in. Now, I would like to hand over now to the folks from the CogSci Society. So we're, really lucky here to, so we've got Alba Toole, who's a Cognitive Science Society Secretary, and we've also got Roxana and Thomas, who are also involved in the Society. So maybe you guys can switch on your webcams and if you're still there.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Roxana.
Hello. Hi, yeah. Perfect. As Mark said, we have weekly discussions and mostly informal discussions about anything to do with cognitive science. We have academic talks from professors, researchers, and other experts. We hold socials. Well, we did when that was possible. We'll still hold socials, although they'll have to be online. Movie screenings and anything that we find fascinating to this cog-sci. I really loved your section on illusions. Last year we had a whole event that concerned illusions, both visual and audio, and also physical illusions of peanut butter. So if you want to get that kind of fun and build up a community of people interested in cognitive science, then definitely join our society and look out for more events like that. Unfortunately, all online in first semester, but maybe back in real life semester 2.
Thank you, Roxana. Let me also...
Alba, yeah.
Yeah, maybe Alba, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to let you all know that we have a Welcome Week event coming this Thursday at 4 p.m. And we're also running another, the same event at another time on Friday at 12:30. So you could check our Facebook page, and we can actually send a link to the event here in the chat. I can do that now. So you can sign up.
Yeah, can you do that?
Yeah, I'll do that now. So you can sign up and we can send you to the link to the Zoom session.
Yeah. Our main way of communicating with you is through Facebook, although if you don't have it, we will be posting more stuff on the USA webpage, I think. And if you want to join our mailing list, you can email us. I don't know, Thomas or Alba, could you put our email in the chat for them as well? And yeah, we hope to see you at our events.
If I may also jump in, I don't know if you can see me. I think we're really small videos in the bottom right, but I'm wearing the cog-sci hoodie right now. This is the type of merch that we create. I see that there's the cognitive science mug on the screen as well. So Mark, you just gave us an idea for more merch that we can make for everyone to have. I just wanted to give a shout out because I'm part of the Cognitive Science Society, but I'm also part of the degree. And I just wanted to say that the society is a great chance for everyone to form a community. So the Cognitive Science degree is a very small degree. Not many people take it. But because over the years you can really shape it to your liking, it can happen that everybody goes down their own path. So Cognitive Science Society is a great place to just come together and discuss a lot of these ideas outside of just an academic setting or the lecture theater. And it's an amazing degree. I just want to mention that, even emphasize that. As Mark said, you know, it hasn't all been solved yet, but what's beautiful is that you can solve it yourselves. And not only that, but the degree is constantly being shaped. And the beauty of that is that you can also, let's say, leave your mark and help shape it. So please do be a part.
That's great. Thank you so much, guys. It's lovely to see you. And yeah, I was going to say, actually, you know, the cog-sci Society is very, very welcome to use Microsoft Teams thing that I've created to, you know, directly communicate. All of the cog-sci students are going to be on that. So please do that. If you want to host your virtual events on that, then yeah, by all means. Great stuff. So, whoops. That's great. So this is what you've got to look forward to for the next 4 years. You're going to be hearing from a wide variety of different folks in different disciplines. You're going to be challenged in all sorts of ways, which I hope that you're going to find really enjoyable. And you're going to have 2 years where you're going to be getting a lot of breadth and kind of foundations in different disciplines, and then 2 years, years 3 and 4, of incredible freedom where you can go off and do your informatics project, or you can do your experiments in psychology, or you can sit in a room and think very carefully about problems in philosophy. So you have a lot of freedom. And ultimately, you know, as Thomas was saying, you can shape the degree around your own interests, which is really, you know, I think is a real strength of the degree. I want to wish you to have a great year. I want to see if there are any questions that folks want to put into the chat. You might feel a bit overwhelmed by information. Any pressing questions now? I'm aware that I'm going to be seeing some of you guys who are my personal tutees very shortly, where we can, you know, go over other questions. So Roxana is pasting some useful information into the chat. Are there any pressing questions that you guys have right now that you want me to answer, or that you would like the CogSci Society folks? Oh, cool. Yeah. So Alberto's put a link into the newsletter. So Naomi says, do you have a link to the form in order to change your course? Maybe Moira or Shane might be able to help with that. Should be fairly straightforward to do, but I'm not sure what the mechanics of it are. Or Sarah. Any other questions in the meantime? I'll tell you what, Naomi. What I'll do is I'm going to post the answer to that in the Microsoft Teams channel for CogSci. Okay, so I'm going to post it in here. Is that okay? Great. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for bearing with me in the. You know, I'm just learning to use this technology myself at the moment, as you can probably tell. It's been kind of wonderful to interact with you, even if it's at a distance, and I'm going to get to know you all much better as the year goes on. We better wrap up now, because I realize we've gone a little bit over time. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but it's wonderful to see you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hang around in the chat for another 15 minutes or so. So if you've got any questions or anything you want to raise, then just stick it into the chat. I'll let you get on, and look forward to seeing you a bit more shortly. Okay. Thanks, guys. So I'll still be in the chat for a little bit. Bye now.